welcome to Money Matters TV. We have a really interesting show today, and I am joined by my co-host, Jim DeLorenzo from Jim DeLorenzo Public Relations.
Hi, Patty.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
So tell me about what's new in PR recently.
Well, recently I've been seeing a lot of attention being paid to the idea of fake news that's been raised in the media and in the political world, and people in the business world are responding to issues of fake news, and people considering press releases and information that comes directly from a company to be canned news, fake news. And what I am seeing is a change in what's credible and not credible. So I think the whole idea of fake news relies on the credibility of the person who is reporting the news and issuing the statement. So one of the things that I've been really working with the last few months especially has been enhancing the credibility of my clients and the people that I work with by positioning them as experts in their particular field or experts in a particular subject, and making sure that we establish their credentials and that you establish the expert status of that person or that spokesman, so that when people see them in the media and people are reaching out to them for comment, they're a trusted and expert opinion that people admire and can take as credible. Mm-hmm. And one of the toughest things in the world is to overcome the stigma of not being liked or not being likable. We're seeing a lot of that right now, not in the Philadelphia market per se, but nationally, with certain media figures and certain public officials who may say something that is not correct at the start, and then they have to backtrack, or they have to apologize, or they have to reconsider or reissue a statement. So one of the things that I always tell my clients and my friends in the field is to make sure that you do not say anything without giving it some thought. Take a moment. Do not respond quickly and off the cuff. Take a moment to think through your answer before you make a statement.
Do you think people should, if they made a mistake, you see all the public officials that have to come out and say, first they say I didn't embezzle the money, and then later they admit that they embezzled the money because they're hoping they're not going to get caught. And from a PR standpoint, do you think they should come out right away and say they did it, or should
I think that you have to be very careful, especially in a situation like that, if you've committed a crime or if you've committed a misdeed in that regard. You need to be very careful of what you say all along the steps of the way.
Or maybe we won't be so extreme with stealing money. What if you just a company makes a mistake?
If a company makes a mistake, I always caution people to apologize for that mistake or make amends as quickly as possible. I always remember a situation many years ago where a house blew up in the Philadelphia suburbs, and there had been calls to the energy provider that there was a gas leak, and they did not respond in time, and that energy provider, within an hour of the explosion, came on the local news and admitted that they had made a mistake, that they were going to they were apologizing to anybody that was involved in the explosion, and that they were going to make things right. And you never heard about that story ever again. But they responded so quickly and so positively and so impactfully that any other issues that could have come from that went away.
So do you help your clients draft what they're going to say?
I like to draft statements in advance if possible. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of is social media mistakes, or CEOs or company officials make a mistake of making a personal comment or a political comment. And
isn't that the entire
the Twitterverse?
Yeah.
It seems like that's the entire Twitterverse, but if you do things in a well thought out way and not spur of the moment decision to type 140 characters and hit tweet, you have to really think about what you're going to say. If you're doing it for your business, it helps to craft your messages in advance. Mm-hmm. You have, say you have a schedule of you're going to attend a trade show, or you're going to be attending a function. You want to promote your appearance at that trade show. Well, if you know you're going to that trade show and you know that you're going to have a booth there, Why don't you write your tweets out in advance, like 2 weeks before the event, so that you know day one we're going to send these 3 tweets out, or day 2 we're going to send these 3 tweets out, instead of just ad hoc, ad-libbing on the spot. Here we are at the trade show, and run the risk of making a mistake or
You
a
know,
spelling error.
I'll tell you, a few years ago, I don't know if you remember when the Super Bowl, when the lights went out.
Yes.
So I ran social media for one of my clients that makes flashlights. And I ran out to my car because my phone was in the car. I sat in the car. I was sober. I was not drinking. And I tweeted and I went on Facebook and posted something. And I just was so excited to get it out there before any of their competitors did anything.
Sure.
I hit post, and at that point, I realized that there were 2 typos in it. And they weren't
major typos.
major, but they're typos in a national brand's post.
Correct.
So then I'm freaking out, and I'm trying to delete it from my phone. And back then, the Facebook Pages Manager, you couldn't delete anything from your phone, and you definitely could not edit your post a few years ago.
Right.
So then I'm texting one of my coworkers, "Are you home? Are you home? I made a mistake. I can't get rid of it." And she couldn't do it. She was just laughing. She's like, "I'm out. I can't do anything." And then by the time I drove back into the city and went to my office to fix it, people were like, "Oh, looks like someone had too much to drink." And I was like,
And your enthusiasm got caught up with you, but it wasn't a major mistake. Like earlier today, I saw a nationally known columnist tweet a reproduction of a press release sent out by the FCC announcing the new PR person for the FCC, and he was pointing out, boy, she made a mistake right off the start, and he was claiming that the person misspelled the FCC chairman's name, and he had to pull that tweet down within 5 minutes because she did not misspell the FCC chairman's name. It was spelled correctly, but it was an unusual spelling of that person's name. So he automatically assumed that she was wrong, sent out a tweet, and had to send out take that tweet down and apologize to everybody 5 minutes later. So it pays to stop and think first. And that's
check your sources.
Check your sources. Check your information. That's why things get caught up with fake news. People in the heat of the moment send out something and then don't think about what they just sent out, and then have to retract it or take it back.
Or they publish it because it's better for ratings.
They publish it for it's better for ratings. Yeah, I think if you can get more visits by posting something like that and get more views, and that's one way to do it, but you certainly wouldn't be considered a credible source in the future.
I have not seen it until just recently, and I know that Facebook was controlling fake news, and they were allegedly putting something on there that says this is fake news, and I'd never seen it myself, and I finally saw it for the first time where the post was there, and right underneath it was a caption that said this is an unverified source.
That's interesting because I haven't seen that yet, but I think I'm more skeptical of news sources, and the people that I follow on Twitter or the people that I follow on Facebook are pretty much friends of mine or acquaintances of mine that I've had some interaction with. So I might not see what somebody else in the media is posting that may be fake news.
What's so sad is that once somebody publishes it and talks about it, it becomes the news.
Correct.
Not
It
even
controls the cycle for the next 24 hours in some cases.
Yeah, or longer.
That's correct.
Depends if there's nothing else exciting to talk about, right?
Until we have a hurricane or an earthquake that takes everything off the air for a couple days, except those stories.
Yeah. All right, so I have a question for you from the audience. This is from Roberta Martin in Philadelphia. What are some reasonable PR ideas that I could do for my business? And that's maybe a little too broad. Lots of different businesses, different solutions.
There's a lot of different solutions, Roberta, but that's a good question because especially if you're just starting a business or you're just starting a product or a service, you want to get the attention for it yourself as quickly as you can. Even though we talked earlier about the misfalls and missteps in Twitter and Facebook, if you can craft yourself a very compelling message and a very factual and good message about your business or about your product and services, Facebook and Twitter are free. They're a great way to get the word out and draw people to your site or draw people to your business. Another great first step you might want to take is crafting a message. before you even take to Twitter or take to Facebook. Craft your message. Write out what you want to say. What do you want people to know about you? Write it out longhand if you have to. But take it and look at it. Consider what you want to say. Get that message straight. Is there something in there that you can boil down to 140 characters? Is there something that you can get in that out of 30 seconds worth of telling somebody in your elevator pitch, this is what I do, this is why it's important, this is why you should hire me, this is why you should do business with me. If you can come up with something that's 30 seconds in length that you can tell someone right off the start as you're introducing yourself to them, if you can come up with 140 characters that can succinctly position your company or your business and what you do, if you can come up with that message off the bat, that's the way you can take yourself forward and move on to the next steps in public relations and getting your message out there.
That's really good advice. I have some new clients that are launching brand new businesses, and I'm just trying to see if there's anything I'm missing.
And it really helps to get that message straight. That a lot of people think that their business is the only business in town. And 99% of the time, we're competing with everybody. So how do you differentiate yourself? How do you communicate that message that you're different, that you're better, that you're bigger, better, the newest, the greatest? Taking the time to write it out for yourself and maybe share it with your friends. Share it with your not your work friends, but your personal friends. See if it makes sense to them. A lot of times when I'm writing something and I'm not sure if I'm communicating the message correctly, I go to my wife and I say, do you understand this? And if she can understand it, maybe it's not the lowest common denominator, but it's in the ballpark where somebody who's a layman can say, oh yes, I understand this. Then you can go forward with that and be confident in your story.
I know Roberta's probably very appreciative. That was a very in-depth answer. So if you have questions and you'd like to send them in, here's how to do it.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
Our guest, probably more than you are. His name is Bill Borton from W.R. Borton and Associates, and we're going to talk about retirement and long-term planning.
Thank you, Patty.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
Jim, pleasure to meet you.
Bill, same
Yes.
here.
Oh.
So tell us about your business.
Well, I spent half my career in the insurance business in the employee benefits space, and after the downturn in the economy and then the inevitability of Obamacare, I determined that I didn't really want to do that anymore. And so I took a look at my age, my contemporaries, my designations, the emerging trends that I was seeing. And so I decided that I was going to start focusing on long-term care planning and insurance and focus on high net worth baby boomers. Over the ensuing years, and this was 6 years ago that I started my practice, over the ensuing years, a lot of the advisors, the accountants and the attorneys and the financial advisors that refer their clients to me started asking for help with other things because the fee-only advisors, the CPAs that are the trusted advisors to their clients, didn't understand Medicare. They didn't understand long-term care. They didn't understand how annuities work and things like that. And so as I developed that know, like, and trust that I like to talk about with them, they started looking for more things from me. And so ultimately my business has morphed into what I recall retirement risk management.
What are some of the cases that you've encountered over the last couple of years as you've gotten your business started? What are some of the questions that people most frequently ask you about?
Well, it depends because, again, the people that I serve tend to be baby boomers that, as a general rule, have between 1 and 10 million of invested assets. And most of them have some other advisors that they're working with. But in most cases, they don't have anybody talking to them about the risks that they will face in retirement. And some of the risks that you face in retirement, like inflation and market downturns and things like that, you can't do a whole lot about. But there are risks that you can manage, like healthcare costs, long-term care costs, some of the risks about running out of money because you live longer than your assets. And there are ways that you can manage around these risks. But most of the advisors that help people grow their money during their accumulation years don't really know too much about decumulation or about giving the money back for income and retirement. And so this is the area that I've really focused on, is around managing these risks and helping people figure out how to live better longer, which has become my tagline, by looking at all the factors and all the risks that either I can help them with directly or that I can work as a collaborator with their other advisors to help them solve.
You're going to have a TV show, right? Live Better Longer?
As a matter of fact, yeah. The RBN network over in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, I was on one of their shows this morning, and after the show, I was offered the opportunity to host my own show. So Live Better Longer will air for the first time in the third week in October.
That's really exciting.
I'm looking forward to it, yeah. I'll be interviewing a lot of the people that I collaborate with.
That's really wonderful. Tell me the one that really surprises me. You can control healthcare costs after you retire?
Well, most people that I work with that have not yet retired have health insurance through their employer. And so they may have a high deductible plan with a health savings account or something along those lines. But what most people don't realize is that when you turn 65, your health insurance is going to change. You're going to end up with Medicare.
Even if you're still employed?
Well, when you're still employed, you have to file for Medicare Part A, which is facility care, which you don't pay for, but you do have to sign up. And you only have to sign up for Part B, which is the provider, the medical provider care, when you lose your employer-sponsored care. So for somebody, that could be at 65 or before. Or if you're working beyond normal retirement age, it's whenever that employer-sponsored care ends. And then you have to deal with what I call alphabet soup, because you have Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D, supplements or Medigap policies. And this is not rocket science, because after all, this was designed by the government. But you do have to understand the alphabet soup, as I call it, so that you can make sure that you file for the right things at the right time. And because with supplements, you only get one bite at the apple, where there's no health questions required. You need to do that right the first time as well.
No, you call yourself a retirement risk manager, is that right?
I think so. I think that works for me.
What does that mean, and how does it relate to what we were just talking about?
Well, so what started again is long-term care planning and insurance, and I talk planning because that comes before the insurance. When you start helping people with Medicare, well, that's healthcare costs. Some of the studies say that between retirement and life expectancy, you're going to shell out $250,000 in healthcare costs.
In your entire lifetime?
Between 65 and life expectancy. And Fidelity and a couple of other.
Out-of-pocket costs?
Yes. You have Medicare Part B premiums, you have Part D or prescription drug premiums, and then you have all the co-pays and deductibles that aren't covered by Medicare, and then other things like hearing aids and glasses and things like that that aren't covered by Medicare.
I'm really horrified. $250 from age 65 to death?
That's possible.
So you're prepared for that?
I don't think any of us are prepared for that.
The majority of the baby boomers are going to end up living way, way, way below their pre-retirement means at some point. It's unfortunate. Very few people are actually prepared to live on what they've accumulated as opposed to what they're living on now.
And you have people that have $1 to $10 million in assets.
Invested assets, yeah. But $1 million isn't what it used to be. You know, people talk about safe withdrawal rates. There's this 4% rule that a lot of the financial advisors use. Well, 4% of $1 million is $40,000 a year. And if that's a safe withdrawal rate, almost safe, well, most people think, oh, 40,000 in Social Security, that's not enough. Well, then what do I do? Well, if you withdraw more than 4%, your chances of running out of money go up exponentially. So if you draw less than 4%, no, but what about your expectations about lifestyle in retirement? So then you get into things like annuities, and Ken Fisher hates them, Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey don't like them either. I tell people annuity's a 4-letter word. Well, in reality, annuity's a way of creating a pension. And most people no longer have pensions, defined contribution plans. So one way you can get one is to create your own. But that means you've got to go to an insurance company and give them money and buy an annuity.
And can they go bankrupt, or is it federally backed?
Insurance companies are not backed by the feds, but there are what are called state guarantee associations that will bail out an insurance company. Back over the last year or two, Penn Treaty was a Pennsylvania-based company that got in the news a lot. They literally were liquidated. But generally, if an insurance company gets in trouble, they go into what's called receivership, and the state regulators take them over and work on rehabilitating them and getting somebody to help take on some of their responsibilities. So you've got that. But the reserve requirements that insurance companies have to have are infinitely greater than those of the commercial banks. So if you buy insurance or an annuity from a company with an A rating or better, from AM Best Company, chances are pretty good, unless the world collapses around us, that they're going to be there to pay you.
If I may, I had two elderly relatives of mine pass in the last 2 years or so, and the number of them had annuities, but they didn't seem to work out for them. What are the drawbacks of an annuity, especially for, not necessarily for the people that take them out, but for the people who they leave behind?
Well, it's a good question, and it's one that doesn't have a short answer.
Okay.
Basically, annuities are either going to provide you with income now or income later. And a lot of the bad news about annuities are people who are sold annuities where they're not buying them for income now, they're buying them for income later,
Yes.
and they're being sold as a crash-proof retirement investment. And the upside is aggrandized and the downside is talked about as well. But really what an annuity is it's a product that has the opportunity to receive income payments for life, no matter how long you live. And so if you have longevity in your family and you're healthy, then chances are you're going to want to buy an annuity because you're going to end up beating the insurance company. If you're unhealthy and you are not likely to live beyond life expectancy, well, then buying an annuity is probably not a real good idea.
What is life expectancy these days?
Well, it depends. For a 65-year-old male, life expectancy is around 85, give or take. But every year that you live beyond 65, your life expectancy keeps going further and further because people keep dropping off along the way. There's a website called livingto100.com, which was created by a doctor a number of years ago. When I first did it, when I first started my business 6 years ago, I put in all of my information and it came up that I was going to live to age 99. And so I did it again about 6 months ago. Now I'm going to make it to 101. One of the reasons is because I'm a little older and I'm still here, and plus I have a very healthy lifestyle. So I'm going to buy annuities because I'm going to get into the insurance company's money, whereas other people aren't. I'm going to wait till age 70 to claim Social Security because, again, you get about 176% more income at age 70 than you do at age 62. And so claiming at age 62, you know, people say, oh, Social Security is going to go bankrupt, I'm going to get it while I can, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you don't need the income at 62 and you can wait, waiting is way in your favor if, again, you expect to outlive your life expectancy.
So your best advice to people then is to be rather unhealthy if they have no money?
Well, there was an old New Yorker cartoon that my wife gave me, and it's a man, you know, looking all worried over his laptop computer, and his wife's leaning over his shoulder. And he said, after all my calculations, I've determined if we retire late and die early, we'll be okay.
I saw a joke once that said, I want to die when I run out of money, so sometime next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people make light of all this because in most cases they either don't have a plan or they don't have a really well thought out plan, and they're scared. And so, you know, the biggest fear, there's been a number of studies, baby boomers' biggest fear is not dying, their biggest fear is outliving their money. And yet people keep kicking the can down the road. Well, think about it. When is there a good time to go get a will, sit down and talk to Bill, talk about death, disability, dependency, old age, cognitive impairment? When is that fun?
Never.
But at some point, it happens. There's only 2 ways you can die. Did you know that? Did you? You know what they are, Jim?
Old age and
No. Conveniently and inconveniently. Okay? Everybody wants
That
to
makes
die.
sense.
Everybody wants to go conveniently, die in their sleep,
Right.
But the vast majority of people go inconveniently, and it could be inconvenient for them and others for days, weeks, months, or years. And so, if you think about it, if you care about other people, your spouse, your family, the planning that you do now, while you still have some time, gives you options. Time's either your friend or your enemy. And when you have time and you're willing to talk about some of these things with your family members and with some other advisors, you stand a much better chance of being able to manage these retirement risks and improve your chances of living better longer.
So we only have a couple minutes left. Tell me, when is the best time to talk to you? Is it the earlier the better?
Depends on the subject. I always tell people when you're no longer spending all your money on your kids is probably a good idea. I say to a couple, I say, you two looked at each other and say, the kids are gone, they're out of the house, it's just us. Do we still want to be married to each other? And if the answer is yes, then I suggest that they have what I call the conversation, where they kind of figure out what the rest of their lives are going to look like. And it's not just money and insurance and retirement income, it's what do we want to do? What do we want to do? Do we ever want to retire? Where do we want to live? What are we concerned about? Do we want to leave a legacy? And you just got to start taking it all one thing at a time. But if you don't start at some point, sooner or later you run out of time, something happens, and then everybody's in dire straits.
I do love that commercial that scares you, that shows how much money do you have, the colored strips on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And how much longer are you going to live past your
Yeah.
money. Really is a good reminder that it's important to have a conversation with you and plan well.
If I could figure out how to get everybody to want to call me up and talk to me, I'd be a happy guy. But I have not come up with a secret, answer to that question yet. But, who knows?
Do you have a website address?
I do.
What is it?
WRBorton.com.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, I try to make it easy for people. You can find me on LinkedIn at Bill Borton. That's easy too.
Okay.
And you can get me at 609-534-3100 or bill@wrborton.com.
That's fantastic. I'm sure people are going to call you.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I don't bite.
Okay, so thank you guys for joining me today. Our guest next week is Ted McLaughlin. He's the CEO of DyeSorb Systems, Inc., and I don't know what he does, but you're going to find out next week. Thank you for joining us.